Hey, what's going on, everybody? Brent Hyden here, coming at you on this frigid Monday morning, talking 7 games around the association. As I noted on the last video, going to keep these a little bit shorter going forward. Just going to highlight 4 or 5 of my top plays from every position with MLB right around the corner. I want everybody to be able to take in both videos. That way they can continue to build their lineups and things like that. So, quick reminder, if you're not already signed up for the NBA daily content and projections, you can actually sign up for MLB between now and opening day, and you will get access to NBA for the rest of the season. If you're already signed up for NBA, MLB, you get a little bit of a discount by signing up that way. So let's just go ahead and take a look at the first games that I'm really interested in. Dallas, Brooklyn, there's a couple of guys in my notes that I'm going to get to that I absolutely love in that game. Milwaukee, Phoenix is a little bit interesting if maybe they decide to sit Giannis or something like that. We do have some revenge with Eric Bledsoe returning to Phoenix in that one. New Orleans, Utah, going to be a little bit of a popular game. I think there's some interest I have there. New York, Sacramento, a very good game to target, and Clippers, Lakers, another really good game to target. There is some injury news to keep an eye on in Atlanta at Miami. One player that I really like in that game I will get to here in just a moment, but I do really like that game. If we get some Hassan Whiteside news or something like that, it could definitely open things up. I think this Denver-San Antonio game will go overlooked. That could be a mistake. Nikola Jokic, someone that I'll get to here in just a minute. I really like him here in this spot, but there's a few other guys, if you check out the notes, that I think can have some success. But let's go ahead and hop into the plays that I'm looking at here tonight. The very first one that I'm going to talk about is Luka Doncic heading into Brooklyn. This is a fantastic spot for Dallas heading into this game. And Luka, who has just been outstanding recently, one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. He comes in at 9,100 on DraftKings, 9,800 on FanDuel. He is a core option for me. This is a 224 over under. Brooklyn 5.5-point favorites. Pace up spot here for Luka. Put up 38 fantasy points in 26 minutes in his last game, averaging 24.4 points, 17.5 field goal attempts, 9.4 rebounds, 7.4 dimes over the last 30 games. Has posted a 33% usage rate over that span. Nets 13th in defensive efficiency to point guards. That leaves a little bit to be desired. That being said, they've allowed opponents to score 52 points in the paint per game against them. They're allowing opponents to shoot 45.3% in the paint. Luka, 25% of his shots come in the paint. This is a spot where I absolutely love Luka Doncic. Again, going to be a core option for me here tonight. Next guy that I'm going to talk about is someone that is very tough to trust, but I do really like him in tournaments, and that's going to be Dennis Smith Jr. I love targeting him in matchups against teams that really struggle to protect the rim. Dennis Smith, 6K on DraftKings. I like this play a little bit more on DraftKings, 7K over on FanDuel. Minutes, not quite getting the 30 minutes we would like him to get most nights. Might have been on his way to doing so in that Clippers game if it hadn't been a huge blowout. Again, this is more of a tournament option. Sacramento allowing opponents to shoot 65.2% at the rim. He takes just so many shots at the rim, and this is a spot where I do feel kind of like targeting him. Again, more of a tournament option, but someone with point guard not being that great tonight, someone that I definitely think we don't want to overlook. I think Emmanuel Mudiay is someone else that we can potentially look at here. He's kind of splitting those minutes at times with Dennis Smith Jr., so again, with him taking over 40% of his shots at the rim, Kings allowing opponents to shoot 65.2% at the rim, and ranking 22nd defensive efficiency. I do like Dennis Smith Jr. In tournaments here tonight. Going to the Clippers at Lakers game, gonna talk about Patrick Beverley here because I have interest in him. He's just too cheap, especially on DraftKings at 5,200. I know he doesn't have the monster ceiling games very often, but this is a spot with a team that really struggles to rebound. He's 6K over on FanDuel, by the way. With a Lakers team that really struggles to rebound, I think there's some potential upside here for Patrick Beverley. Because he's averaging 10.4 rebound chances per game since the trade deadline. That's pretty good. He's topped 30 fantasy points in 4 of his last 10 games, 20 fantasy points in 8 of those last 10 games. I'll take that all day long in cash games. He's not a high usage guy, and that is a little bit concerning. He's doing it more with the rebounds, with the assist, with some of the steals, but in a very fast-paced game. I really, really like Patrick Beverley in this spot tonight. So he's the guy that I'm really, really looking at here. And then Eric Bledsoe, I guess I owe it to Narrative Street Truthers to talk about Eric Bledsoe, but this is a spot where I still have interest regardless of the revenge narrative. This is a really, really good spot for Eric Bledsoe, who's been playing really, really well prior to sitting out the last last game with that back injury. Put up 52.25 and 67 fantasy points in back-to-back games. Draws one of the best matchups on the board. He's averaged 1.21 fantasy points per minute with a 24% usage rate over the last 30 days. Suns 24th in defensive efficiency to opposing point guards this season. They've allowed him to shoot 36% from 3, allowing opponents to shoot 65% at the rim, where he takes 46% of his shots. So Eric Bledsoe, 6,500 over on DraftKings, 7,400 on FanDuel. Just way too cheap, I think, in this spot here tonight. I do expect him to put up a really strong game. Moving on to the shooting guard position, the first guy that I'm going to talk about, Donovan Mitchell, in this Utah and New Orleans game. Obviously, we do need to keep an eye on the news of Anthony Davis, but I don't really care. Not going to change my outlook on Donovan Mitchell, who comes in at 8,300 on DraftKings, 9,300 over on FanDuel. Has just been outstanding if you take a look. Obviously, coming off that Milwaukee game, playing really well, playing a lot of minutes, 40 plus in 4 straight games, 5 straight games actually. Looking at the streak, I went back and looked at Donovan Mitchell's like 20 plus real point games, and it's kind of insane. I think it's 9 straight games for Donovan Mitchell that he's topped 20 plus points, and he's done so in 19 of the last 20 games. Posted a team high usage rate, 32.2% over the last 30 days. His average 25.4 points, taking 23 shots per game, 5.3 rebounds, 4.8 assists. I absolutely love the spot for him. He's second on the team in points in the paint with almost 10 per game. That's pretty strong against a Pelicans team giving up 50 points in the paint per game. 60% of his shots come in the paint or at the rim. Donovan Mitchell, someone I absolutely love here tonight. The next guy that I absolutely love here tonight comes in struggling a little bit, and it's in that Knicks and Kings game, and that's Buddy Hield, 7K over on DraftKings. He is a little bit pricey, but that's okay because, well, they're taking on the Knicks, and, well, just about anyone's in play when you're taking on the Knicks. He's 7,600 over on FanDuel. As I mentioned, has been struggling a little bit of late. 23 of 64 over the Kings' current losing streak. That being said, still really, really like the spot. Knicks have allowed opponents to shoot 36% on 3-point attempts this season. 46% of his shots come from 3. They rank 20th in defensive efficiency to opposing shooting guards. He's topped 50 fantasy points in 2 of his last 4 games. Continues to see minutes in the mid-30s. Has hoisted at least 20 field goal attempts in 3 of his last 6 games. As I mentioned, has struggled from the floor a little bit, but he is doing more with the rebounds, with some of the steals, things like that. And against the Knicks, I absolutely love Buddy Hield in this spot here tonight. Last guy that I'm going to look at here, actually not the last guy, second to last guy I'm going to look at here, Lou Williams in that Clippers and Lakers game. Sticking with the revenge game narrative, I guess, 6,800 over on DraftKings, 7,400 over on FanDuel. Smash spot here for Lou Williams. Should be a very, very fast-paced, high-scoring game. Lakers defense giving up 123.6 points per game over the last 10 games. He's dominated the team's usage over the last 30 days, 34% usage rate over that span. He's been solid coming off a good game against the Knicks, 32 fantasy points in just 22 minutes. Like, this is a spot against the Lakers team that he has just torched this season. I absolutely love him. He has top 20 real points in 5 of the last 10 games. So, yeah, Lou Williams, who is averaging 47 fantasy points per game against the Lakers. Yeah, definitely want to get some Lou Williams. They're really bad defending both shooting guards and point guards over the last 10 games, 28th in defensive efficiency to shooting guards, 30th in defensive efficiency to point guards. And that was the last shooting guard that I was going to talk about here. Sticking in this game, obviously have to talk about LeBron James. Again, more of this guy is just touching the ball so much, playing so many minutes, doing so much for this team. It's really tough to overlook him. As I've noted before, averaging almost 100 touches per game over the last 30 days, a 30% usage rate since the All-Star break, averaging over 22 potential assists per game. He's top 60 fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games, 6 of the last 10 games, and he's just not really priced like it. On FanDuel, it is a little bit more pricey, 12.4, but on DraftKings at 11.2, and he's just not really priced like he's like the guy that's putting up over 60 fantasy points on pretty much a nightly basis at this point, and that's something to definitely keep an eye on. Put up 24 points, 14 rebounds, 9 assists against the Clippers the last time these teams faced off. I do really like LeBron James here tonight. Going back to that Pelicans and Utah game, Joe Ingles, someone that I definitely want to talk about given how well he has been playing recently and the matchup that we have there. Pulling up the pricing right now, Joe Ingles over on FanDuel is just... that is New Orleans. He does not play for that team. He plays for the other side. Joe Ingles, 6,700 over on FanDuel. Not as appealing there, but he is really cheap over on DraftKings and a really good way to get some cheap exposure to this game. He is just 5,500 over on DraftKings. So since the All-Star break has been really good. He's scored over 30 fantasy points in 5 straight games. Every game since the All-Star break, he has been shooting really, really well. 45.5% from the floor, 45.7% from 3. Again, given the fast-paced nature of this game, I absolutely love him. Averaging 36.4 fantasy points per game over that span. Pelicans 28th in defensive efficiency to opposing small forwards. This is a spot, again, if you want to get some cheap exposure to this game, I absolutely love Joe Ingles in this spot. Going back to the Knicks and the Kings game, gonna talk about Harrison Barnes for a minute, and I keep banging the drum on Harrison Barnes, and most nights it's not paying off, and it's really, really tilting. That being said, he's starting at the power forward position. We know the Knicks really, really struggle against opposing power forwards, so that's a boost to Barnes. He's still playing a ton of minutes here. He is 5,100 on DraftKings, 5,700 on FanDuel. I have him projected for 35 minutes. That makes him a pretty strong cash game play just because of the minutes. Does have a little bit of upside. Put up 10 shots last game, managed just 2 boards, 4 dimes in 38 minutes. If he approaches that 38-minute mark again, like, that's just insane for a guy playing, or for a guy this cheap. Like I said, rebounding wasn't there for him last game. Rebounding most nights should be there, though. He is averaging over 10.6 rebound chances per game, so I would expect him to pull down 5, 6, 7 rebounds in a spot like this against a Knicks team that does struggle to rebound. They're 29th in defensive efficiency to opposing power forwards. For 5,100, I just can't overlook the price tag on Harrison Barnes. Like, this is just a really, really good spot here for him tonight. So, gonna be someone that is definitely in my lineups. Going to a team that we have not talked about yet, going to the Miami Heat, taking on the Atlanta Hawks and Justice Winslow. I know he's technically the team's point guard, but he's listed as a small forward on both DraftKings and FanDuel. I guess point guard, small forward over on DraftKings, but 5,700 over on DraftKings, 6,500 over on FanDuel. Coming off a blowout against Brooklyn, where he almost put up 28 fantasy points in 27 minutes. The guy's just getting like 30 plus most nights. Now that he's been playing really, really well recently. Even with Dragic being back, Winslow still should see 30 plus minutes. Hawks 29th in defensive efficiency to opposing point guards. They're giving up 17.2 fast break points. That's a boost to Winslow, who is pretty good in transition. 40% of his shots come in the paint or mid-range. Atlanta has allowed about 44% shooting in both of those areas. I absolutely love the fact that he's getting rebounds, he's getting assists. This is just a really good spot for him. He's averaging like a fantasy point per minute against the Hawks this season for 5,700 in cash games. I will take that all day long. Looking at the power forward position, this one a little less appealing here on this slate, but a few guys to definitely consider. Gonna talk about Paul Millsap here for a second. Paul Millsap, 6,600 on DraftKings, 7,800 over on FanDuel. Not as appealing over on FanDuel, but this is more of a cash game option here tonight. He's been playing really, really well recently. Over 30 or averaging 31 minutes over his last 5 games, 40 fantasy points in that span. Obviously, that is boosted by the 55 fantasy points he had against the Clippers. But now that they're giving him 30 plus minutes most nights, that's really, really appealing. His ability to get the steals, get the blocks, things like that, really, really appealing in the spot. Again, I think, as I've noted before, they were trying to limit his minutes through the first like 75% of the season. Now that the playoffs are right around the corner, when they need him to play big minutes, he is going to start to play more minutes. Spurs, 22nd defensive efficiency, 2 power forwards on the season. They've allowed them to shoot 49% from the floor, 36.3% from 3. They're allowing 43% shooting in the paint, which is a boost to Millsap, who takes 30% of his shots there. So I really like Paul Millsap, more of a cash game option, but he has shown some major upside. If you wanted to roll him out in tournaments, you could definitely do that here tonight. Looking at the Phoenix, back to the New Orleans Utah game. A lot of good plays in this game. Derek Favors, New Orleans allowing opponents to shoot 67.2% at the rim and 50.4 points in the paint allowed. Derek Favors once again in a great spot tonight, takes 81% of his shots at the rim or in the paint. So obviously taking those shots close to the basket has really helped him. Derek Favors is 5,800 on DraftKings, 7K over on FanDuel. Again, FanDuel pricing absolutely atrocious on a nightly basis. Don't know why people give them money, but here we are. Derek Favors has been just playing insanely good with 30-plus fantasy points in 3 straight games. This is a great spot here for Favors, who had a good game in limited minutes against the Pelicans last time out. Fast-paced game. Gonna go back to the well with Derek Favors. Looking at that Atlanta-Miami game, John Collins, a guy that I have interest in. Hopefully he's able to suit up. Has missed the past couple of games with flu-like symptoms. But John Collins at 7,100 on DraftKings, 8K over on FanDuel, draws probably the best matchup from the Atlanta side of this game. They rank Miami 24th in defensive efficiency to opposing power forwards. They've given up over 10, almost 11 rebounds, 10.8, 22.3 points, and 46% shooting to the position. They have allowed opponents to shoot 44% in the paint over the last 10 games. Collins, 13 points per game, points in the paint scored per game. His rebounding has been a little bit inconsistent lately, but this is a spot where John Collins, should he get 30-plus minutes, which he absolutely should, I see 40-plus fantasy points out of him tonight. So John Collins, someone that I have interest in here. Dallas, Brooklyn. Going to cheat a little bit on this one because I wanted to get Dwight Powell in here, and he's a power forward over on FanDuel. Dwight Powell, 5,200 over on DraftKings. He is somewhat similarly priced over on FanDuel at 6,300. Centers against Brooklyn. I don't know that I need to say a whole lot else, but Dwight Powell, definitely interesting here. 30-plus minutes in 3 straight games, has top 30 fantasy points in 2 of those games, and fantastic matchup, centers against Brooklyn. They're giving up almost 60 fantasy points per game to the position. They've surrendered 14.3 second chance points, 26th in defensive efficiency. Dwight Powell, averaging over a fantasy point per minute over the last 30 days. So anytime you get a big man that's averaging like a fantasy point per minute, playing like 30 minutes against the Brooklyn Nets, you just kind of have to roll with it. As I mentioned, he is power forward eligible over on FanDuel, and that is pretty appealing over there. Looking at the Denver Nuggets, first time I've talked about them here tonight, or no, second time, sorry. I forgot about Paul Millsap. Nikola Jokic, who is 11-2 on FanDuel, 10-3 over on DraftKings, coming off of a foul trouble game. He still only played 21 minutes, still put up almost 50 fantasy points. Dude is knocking down triple doubles on the regular. His topped. He has 4 triple doubles over his last 10 games, 30.1% usage rate over the last 30 days, third in the NBA with 94 touches per game over that span. While the Spurs, not a absolutely terrible defense, they are still really, really struggling to defend the rim. They're really, really struggling to defend in the paint. This is a great spot here for Nikola Jokic, who I think goes overlooked with the way the slate is likely to break down, and that's probably a mistake for a guy that basically can get you 50, 60 fantasy points, even if he's only playing like 25 minutes. So I absolutely love Nikola Jokic in this spot here tonight. The other centers that I want to talk about, Rudy Gobert going up against the New Orleans Pelicans. There's a lot to like, again, about the Utah Jazz with how poor the Pelicans have been playing. This is a spot where Rudy Gobert, someone else I think goes overlooked, 7,900 over on DraftKings, 10-3 over on FanDuel. Again, FanDuel pricing is absolute garbage, but looking at it here, New Orleans 27th in defensive efficiency to opposing centers on the season. They've surrendered 46.7 rebounds per game over the last 10 games to opponents, allowing 50.4 points in the paint per game. Definitely think he goes overlooked. He's topped 45 fantasy points in 7 of his last 10 games for his DraftKings price tag. I'll take that all day long. And the Pelicans have 8 players that are taking a very large portion of their shots at the rim or in the paint. That gives Rudy Gobert lots and lots of block upside. So I absolutely love Rudy Gobert in this spot here tonight. Going back to the Kings Knicks game, I do actually really like Mitchell Robinson. I almost put him in here, but I chose to go with Willie Cauley-Stein, who is 5,800 on DraftKings, 6,100 over on FanDuel. Was big time chalk last time out. Probably going to be somewhat popular here tonight. Did not let us down in that game. 31 minutes, 7-11 from the floor, 12 rebounds, 4 blocks, 16 points. I really like the spot here for Cauley-Stein, who is always tough to trust because the play can sometimes suck. But without Marvin Bagley, obviously his minutes are a little bit more secure. Knicks, 20th in defensive efficiency to opposing centers, 47.8 rebounds, 14.2 second chance points, and 51.5 points in the paint per game allowed. I really like the spot for Willie Cauley-Stein, who is one of my favorite cash game centers on the slate if I'm not going with Dwight Powell or Rudy Gobert. Gonna hit a GPP value play here back in this Clippers-Lakers game. We saw JaVale McGee start the second half against the Suns, and well, he hit 10 of 10 from the floor, put up 7 rebounds, 31 fantasy points in 26 minutes. Now, I don't know if he starts in this game, but if he does, at 3,800 on DraftKings, 4,400 on FanDuel, in the absolute best matchup on the board for opposing centers, I like JaVale McGee in tournaments. If he starts, he might even be a cash game play at that $3,800 price tag just because it's so cheap. It's really hard for anyone to fail at that price tag against the Clippers, who are giving up 60 fantasy points per game to opposing centers. They're giving up 46 rebounds per game, 14.1 second chance points, 50.8 points in the paint. We know he's a guy that puts up big numbers in whenever he gets minutes. And, well, I think this is a spot where if he can get back in that starting lineup going against Ivica Zubac, if he can get 24, 26 minutes here, I think he can easily pay off that price tag there. So that's the top guys that I'm looking at. Again, a couple of injury situations to monitor. Maybe Giannis, Anthony Davis, and the the Atlanta Hawks and Miami Heat both sides of that game. So good luck in all your contests tomorrow. I will be back on Wednesday. Good luck in your contest tonight, too, and tomorrow, and the rest of the week. But yeah, I will be back on Wednesday.